Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alissa Coram here, and today is Tuesday, tax day, April 15th. We've got a lot to discuss today as major indexes hit resistance again. As always, we've got a couple of stocks of note to discuss, and joining me now is Ed Carson. Ed, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, I want to take a look at Netflix, CrowdStrike, and Progressive.
Okay, we'll take a look at those stocks, but first, let's check in on the major indexes. Ed, what went down in the market today?
Well, as you can see, for the second time and second day in a row, and the maybe the third time in the past week, the some of the major indexes hit resistance at the 21-day moving average. There wasn't a whole lot of tariff news. I mean, there was some tariff news. It's all relative. So you can argue that the volatility was a little bit quieter. You could argue that hey, maybe a few days of sideways action would be constructive. But we're hitting resistance here, but at the same time, we're not falling apart either. So still waiting for a decisive move. If we can decisively break higher, especially with a follow through day, that would be nice. We did see some nice in some leading stocks make some bullish moves. We'll look at a couple of them today. But yeah, still some resistance levels. And the thing is, once you get above them, it's like an adventure store, like an adventure movie. It's like, yeah, there's a resistance, but there's always these challenges along the way. I mean, there'd be the 50-day line, there'd
Mhm.
be the 200-day line, and there's a bunch of others you can find. So it's not like getting above that level would do it, but
Well, we gotta stay
uh,
above that. If we get above it, we gotta stay above it. That's
got to
another
get
thing.
above, got to stay. Yep, exactly. So, I don't think people should take too much from today. It was nice, it would be nice to get above that level. At the same time, the market didn't really do anything terrible either.
Okay. Well, like you said, the volatility is contracting for now, but of course, more tariff headlines could uh, make that volatility rear its ugly head again. So we'll just have to see. But I do think there's a pretty clear level of resistance that
Yeah.
we're keeping tabs on and seeing the major indexes, especially the Nasdaq and the S&P, get above and stay above that 21-day line and trend above it. A couple of days where the low is below, or sorry, that low is above the 21-day line, I think would go a long way for trend traders. I know that's something that Mike Webster, our senior market strategist, is keeping a very close eye on. So we'll have to see if we can continue to make progress. But like you said, some stocks showing some signs of life, which some positive green shoots perhaps out there.
Yeah,
Um,
green shoots. Yeah, just a question about like again, if you have another winter frost that comes in late in the spring, those green shoots will get knocked down. So you can try to do things. You can try to do things, and we'll talk about that, but be
right.
very cautious because it's not clear that we're in a real true spring summer environment. That's for sure.
Mhm. Okay, and then in terms of index performance, the Nasdaq down fractionally on the day, the S&P 500 down 0.2%, the Dow down 0.4%, and the Russell 2000 with a slight gain on the day. Next on the list, let's take a look at the 10-year yield. Are we seeing this calm down at all, Ed? What do you
Eh,
think?
a little bit. It was getting a little scary coming up because that was not normal action. When you see the economy, when people are fearing a recession, when you're fearing a lot of instability, people are supposed to rush into treasuries, not rush out. So really good to see this come down. If that can continue or just pause, sort of level off, I
Right.
think that would be fine. It's if we start surging higher again, I think that would be really, really worrisome. And I don't think the stock market would
Yeah.
handle it well at all.
Okay. Well, something to keep note of. Absolutely, no doubt. Okay. Next, let's take a look at some stocks to watch, including Netflix up 4.8% on the day with an RS line blue dot 2 days ahead of earnings. Full disclosure, I did initiate a small position here, Ed. I usually don't when you're so close to earnings, but this is a stock that has been at the top of my watch list that I've been tracking for weeks. And my game plan was to buy if it did cross a downtrend and get above the 50-day line, especially seeing that blue dot. I think that this is an A plus stock. So willing to see if I can get some level of profit cushion heading into the earnings report, which is the night of the 17th, correct? So 2 trading days until earnings.
Yeah, and we won't have a full regular session until next Monday in the US. So, yeah, I mean, it's totally understandable. If it weren't for earnings, I might have joined you. And I mean, I could have done it and then said, well, I'll sell half or even
Right.
sell out, but it's just a tricky environment. Everything else looks good. I mean, not does it technically look good with that trend line, the 50-day, and the strong uptrend before, strong fundamentals. It's
Right.
relative. It's tariff sort of resistant,
Insulated. Yeah.
insulated, and it's recession resistant. I mean, obviously it probably won't go gangbusters if the economy went in recession, but people, if anything, would almost cancel other things to stay at home and watch Netflix. So it does feel like not only does it have all these great things, but it has a relatively high floor, in terms of fundamentals. So there's a lot of reasons to like it, and I totally, so definitely going to be a lot of attention on this one. But there's a lot of stocks that look like this. In a volatile market, you see double bottoms, and we've seen a lot of double bottoms form. And while the market is still well below all these levels, you want to see these, high relative strength line stocks like Netflix.
Yeah. And I did account for the potential risk with a smaller position size. But as you mentioned, if this stock heads south the next 2 days, I may decide to just cut and run before the earnings report. But in terms of measuring your risk on earnings, one just way to eyeball it is to look at, okay, how did this stock react the last couple of earnings reports? So the prior report here, we did get a gap up on earnings. The quarter before that, shares up 11%. So this stock can move big on earnings, but that means if it can move big to the upside, it can also move big to the downside, Ed. So all things to think about. Perhaps maybe earnings is that catalyst for a move above 1,000, but timing is tricky, as you mentioned. Are traders going to be trading after market on Thursday or wait till Monday's open? And of course, it's with a long 3-day weekend in the last couple of months in an environment where we've gotten a lot of headlines over the weekend. That's something to think about.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things, but
Yeah.
luckily it is a little bit safer on some other things, but a great looking stock right now.
Okay. Next on the list, let's check in on CrowdStrike, also forming a double bottom. You've been great about pointing out this one as well. Got above the 50-day line with a close above the 50-day line today, hovering just under that round number of 400. Shares up 3.7% on the day. What do you make of this stock, Ed?
Yeah, nice move. It's above. I mean, it is high enough that middle of the W to be a proper double bottom. So that can still work. There's 392.69. If you drag it over to the left, it's just above the prior buy point. So there's a lot of trading around this area. Obviously, there's trading above that as well. I think the one thing is that it's run up a fair amount. This is true of a lot of things. That's the case with double bottoms. Okay. And that's sometimes, I mean, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if it just paused here for a few days. Like, it's just so tricky with the market. Can we really expect several days of pause in there? But the relative strength line isn't at highs, but it's almost there.
Yeah.
So it's right in that range. Another one that's doing well. It's going to have a weaker 2026, and part of fallout from all that global IT outage that it caused back then. But I think people are looking past that. So the fundamentals aren't as safe here, and this one can sell off pretty quickly. But another one that people could have taken action on, and there aren't earnings for a while.
Hmm. Yeah. The other thing that I would say about this one in terms of a wart that I see is that a lot of the base was formed underneath
Yeah.
the 50-day. Netflix, of course, did spend time below its 50-day as well. Uh, but maybe it's just the look of it to me, Ed, that it just doesn't look quite as strong, that the middle peak couldn't get above the 50-day. If I were to
Yeah.
nitpick something, that would be it here.
That's a good one, and also look, it went below the 200-day line twice, whereas
Mhm.
Netflix found support there, and the middle of this W, as you say, it's not just didn't really get above the 50-day line, but it's pretty far down. There is a fair amount of distance to the top of that base, whereas Netflix is a little more compact.
Mhm.
and a little bit closer to the top of the base. So yeah, so there's definitely things. It's hard to find stocks that look pristine. That's for
Yeah.
sure in this environment. And that's one reason why a lot of investors might just say, even if you're aggressive, you want to have a pretty low involvement. And a lot of people could still be completely in cash, and that'd be perfectly valid.
Yeah. We haven't seen a real follow through day yet. And I think in terms of the positioning of it, seeing a move above that 21-day line on the index level, that would be encouraging. But again, underneath some major levels, as you mentioned there, Ed. Okay, let's round things out with a look at Progressive in the insurance space, another stock with earnings right around the corner.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I suppose you could trade this overnight. That's not the kind of stock people normally trade, but Progressive and Travelers both report tomorrow morning. It's a Dow stock, but Travelers is a little bit further down, but it's not. I mean, the relative strength line's fine, but Progressive, that one is still in the buy zone, which I think you'd still say is valid. That this big shakeout, but it didn't really close in the sell zone. On the weekly chart, I mean, it's sort of a double bottom. It would technically be a flat base after this week, but you could probably use the middle of that there is sort of at least as an early entry. So there's places there. A lot of insurers are doing well. These are sort of two of the first that are coming in. We'll get plenty over the next few weeks. Don't neglect the defensive growth. I mean, there's going to be some of these are going to have weakness. This one may be more auto than the others. So whereas others like Travelers, I think is going to get hit for Q1 because of the fires and some of the hurricanes. But the general picture is strong with a lot of these names. So we're looking at some of these growth names like CrowdStrike and Netflix and Palantir, but there's a lot of reasons that investors should be looking at defensive growth areas like insurance.
Yeah, I mean, look at that relative strength line. As the tariff related uncertainty really came to the forefront of the market over the last few months, what has really held up in the face of that? This is definitely one of those areas.
Yeah, and so still some solid growth here, and I did have a big sell-off, but it came back a lot. Just but it also shows you there was something. It was notable is that when the market really broke, the insurers did to a lot of defensive areas and defensive growth areas.
Yeah,
So there is no super safe haven. If I mean,
exactly.
this market's doing fine and sort of hanging around there, but if it started tumbling toward lows again, everything's going to sell
Right.
off again, and you just have to recognize that.
Well said. Defensive does not mean guaranteed safety. All right. Good stuff, Ed. We appreciate it as always. Thanks for filling us in.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for tuning in, everyone. That's it from us for today, but we will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. We will see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.